All right, guys, day 5. This is our final day. We've made it. You should be so happy. So today we're going to work on finding equivalent fractions. Yesterday we just kind of worked on understanding what they were, so now we're going to actually be finding them. Our learning target is still the same. I will understand that fractions can be equal when they have the same amount or are on the same point on a number line. So let's look at our packet, lesson 17. It says, in lesson 16, you learn that equivalent fractions name the same amount of the whole. In this lesson, you will learn more about finding equivalent fractions. Take a look at this problem. Izzy's mom baked a cake. She put chocolate frosting on half the cake and vanilla frosting on half of the cake. Then Izzy's mom cut the cake into fourths. What fraction other than 1/2 names the part of the cake that has chocolate frosting? So it says, look at the picture above. What fraction of cake has chocolate frosting? So we already know. So this is just A. Alright, so we already know. They told us that it was half. So half of it is chocolate. How many equal parts should the cake be divided into to show fourths? So if it's fourths, how many equal parts would we have? 4. Good job. On the picture above, draw lines to divide the cake into fourths. Each fourth should have all chocolate or all vanilla frosting. So what they're saying is when you divide it, you cannot break it up to be a little bit of chocolate and a little bit of vanilla mixed together. It has to be a fourth of chocolate, a fourth of vanilla, a fourth of chocolate, a fourth of chocolate, a fourth of vanilla, and 1/4 of vanilla. You can't have a fourth of chocolate and vanilla mixed together. So go ahead and do that, guys. Remember, 4 equal parts. So now that you've done that, sorry, just trying to make it so it says D. So now it says, how many fourths of the cake have chocolate frosting? So if you partition it into fourths, how many parts now are chocolate? You should have 2 fourths because 2 of the 4 equal parts are chocolate. It said, did the amount of cake with chocolate frosting change? Explain how you know that 1/2 the cake is the same amount as 2 fourths. So, when we partitioned it into fourths, did we add any more chocolate frosting to the cake? No. Did we take away any more? No. All we did was make the pieces smaller. So did the amount of cake with chocolate frosting change? So no. The amount of chocolate frosting did not change. How do you know, or explain how you know that 1/2 the cake is the same amount as 2 fourths of the cake? So I know that 1/2 of the cake is the same as 2 fourths of the cake because, why are they the same? Because they take up the same amount. Because they have the same amount, we'll say. They have the same amount of, we'll say, chocolate frosting, because that's what we were working on. Good job, guys. Next page. Alright, so in the last lesson, you compared 2 models to understand equivalent fractions. The models were the same size, but they had a different number of equal parts. You named the fraction shown in one model. Then you looked at the other model to find the fraction that named the same amount. You can also find equivalent fractions by dividing the same model in different ways. The cake Izzy's mom made already showed 1/2. You may have drawn lines in one of the ways shown below to show fourths. So I know most of us probably did this one or this one. If you did this one, really cool. I need to think about that one though. Each of these different ways of making fourths shows that 2 fourths of the cake has chocolate frosting. So this is what we were talking about, how Here it's 2/4, but I didn't go over. There's no more chocolate over here. I didn't change the amount that was on the cake. It's still the same amount. I just broke it into 2 smaller pieces now. Remember, you can look at different equal-sized parts on a number line to find equivalent fractions. The number line below shows that 1/2 is equivalent to 1/4. So if you look here, 1/2, is equivalent to 2/4. And 2/4 are the same point on the number line. Izzy's mom now wants to cut the cake into 8s. Explain how to figure out how many 8s of the cake have chocolate frosting. So my suggestion to you would be to maybe partition one of these into 8 equal parts. So let's say we did this one, and we could just draw a line straight across, because then we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on the bottom be 5, 6, 7, 8. So go ahead and draw a line straight across. And I'm going to label this number 1. So how would you figure out how many 8s of the cake have chocolate frosting? So first, I would partition the cake into 8 equal parts. Okay, which we did. We drew a line across. Next, I would count how many equal parts are chocolate, or half chocolate frosting. And we can even say we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll even put it in there. 4/8 of the cake are chocolate. Good job. Next page. Alright, so this is just talking about different ways to model equivalent fractions. So we have our problem that says Kason ate 2/8 of an orange. Trey's orange is the same size. He ate 1/4 of it. Show that the two boys ate the same amount of orange. So here they did it. They drew circles and they partitioned it into 8s, shaded in 2, partitioned into 4, shaded in 1. They also drew a number line. And you can see they just put the numbers on top. They didn't separate the number lines. It's more helpful because you can see instead of trying to lining it up with 2 separate ones. So now we're gonna answer some problems about those models. It says, look at the models in picture. How do you know that 2/8 of the first model is shaded? So how do you know that 2/8 is shaded here? Well, how many equal parts do we have? 8. And how many shaded? 2. So we can simply just say that. I know that 2/8 is shaded because there are 8 equal parts and 2 of the equal parts are shaded. How do you know that 1/4 of the second model is shaded? So I want you to answer number 3 on your own since this one is similar to number 2. Pause the video to give you some time. Number 4, explain how the models show that the fractions 2/8 and 1/4 are equivalent. So we're only looking here. So how do you know that this is equal to this? Well, if you look, so they have the solid lines like the 4th, and then they do the dotted lines to kind of show you the 8s. But if we were to remove that, we just look from here to here, is that the same amount? Yes. So you did number 3 independently. Okay, so number 4, so the 2 models show that the fraction 2/8 and 1/4 are equivalent because, and like we said, because they shaded in the same amount. because they shaded the same amount. Not the same fraction, because there are two different fractions, but they're equal because the same amount of that circle, the same amount of space is shaded in on that circle. Oh, and I'm sorry. Yeah, that was right. Number 5. How does the number line in model it show that the fractions 2/8 and 1/4 are equivalent? So how do you know that 2/4 and 4/8 are equivalent? I want you to actually answer this one on your own, because we've talked about this a few times about how you know they are equivalent. And if we look back at our learning target, if you read that real quick, you may want to pause it. That will also help you out. Number 6, complete the sentences to show the fractions of the 2 oranges. Name the same amount. Use words 2/8 is equal to. So 2/8 would be equal to what fraction? And we've talked about this. This is 6. 2/8 is equivalent to 1. Oops. Keeps messing up, guys. I'm sorry. Doesn't want to do right. Is equal to 1/4, which we saw here. And the 2/8 is equivalent to 1/4. Then we're going to use fractions. So if I go down, 2/8 is equal to 1/4. Describe 2 different ways to show 2 fractions are equivalent. So we looked here and we saw that you can use a model or you can use a number line. So I want you to use a complete sentence to tell me how we can show equivalent fractions in 2 ways. Alright, now it says draw a model to show 2/3 and 4/6. So just like they did here, you can go ahead and you can use squares. You don't have to use circles, but I want you to go ahead and show me one model with thirds and shade in 2 parts, and then another model that's partitioned into 6 and shade in 4. And then you're going to come over here and move this up so you can see. They labeled 1/3. I'm sorry, use the number line below. Find a fraction equivalent to 1/3, circle the fraction. So you're going to have to think about this. Use this to help you. So they did thirds, so you might want to try 6 to help you, and then circle what number would be equivalent to 1/3. Go ahead and give it a try. Alright, so I'm going to stop this video here, and if you go back into YouTube, look for week 1, day 5, part 2 to continue this lesson. Great job, guys, so far. I'll see you in a bit.